All right, welcome everybody. You having fun yet? Yeah? Really? That doesn't sound like it. Should we just go home? Are you having fun yet? All right. So I'm Nico. I'm the co-founder of DEF CON. Sci-Fi, who's our MC, is also one of the co-founders, and there's a lot of us here today. And
Hi, I'm Opsahl. I'm with the Electronic Frontier Foundation.
And hopefully the Dark Tangent, who's the founder of DEF CON, will also be joining us. But he gets a little distracted running a show over there on the other side of the casino with about 20,000 hackers. So hopefully he'll be able to make it today. But we'll start out. And so this is our 4th year of Roots Asylum. And originally it was called DEF CON Kids, as Sci-Fi said. But Roots really came from the idea that to get root of a computer is to take full control of it. And so that's where the name came from. And essentially Roots it's a nonprofit. And we're dedicated to teaching kids like you how to be white hat hackers and how to love doing it. And a white hat hacker is someone who enjoys thinking about new ways to make, break, and innovate to make the world a better place. And another term, asylum, is kind of like hacker. It's one that has been used in a lot of bad ways. You know, people think of an insane asylum. But an asylum, actually, the original definition is just a safe place to learn. And that's what we want to have here for you today, is a safe place to learn. That's why we've got Kurt and his team with the EFF here, free lawyers, like I mentioned before, that are helping us in making sure we all stay out of trouble, but yet still have fun playing. And so I think it's really important that you know here that hacking really gives you superhuman powers. You are now some of the most powerful people in the world, or you're going to leave here by the end of the week, you will be so, because you can travel time and space. And I don't know how many of you have read the original Spider-Man. But essentially, with great power comes great responsibility too. So now that you're empowered, I think it's really important that we all have an honor code, and this is something that we expect to follow all the time here. I actually use this honor code as well for the company that I run. Even though it's an honor code that was written for kids, I think it's something that adults and everyone around the world good to live by. And essentially, it starts with a philosophy. And interestingly enough, the honor code and the idea of this honor code came from one of our keynotes from a long time ago, Linton Wells. Linton Wells used to be CIO of the Department of Defense. And it was his idea for us to have an honor code. And that idea came from the military. Within the military, there's honor codes. That's something pretty regular that they have. And you might hear sometimes about hackers and the feds not getting along, but there are a lot that we can learn from each other. For instance, one of the other things that hackers like to do that we learn from the feds are challenge coins. And I've actually got some challenge coins up here right now. And I'm wondering, has anyone read the honor code? Anyone? All right, well, it's on the homepage, and you can read it. I think it's really important. I'm going over it here today. Read it and come up to me, and I've got some challenge coins. I'll ask you a question, and you'll get one of these rare challenge coins if you can answer one of my questions about this. But essentially, it starts with a philosophy, right? This is generally how honor codes are broken into these different categories. And it's really here about asking yourself, what's the most you contribute to this world? What are you best at? And that's what you should be accelerating at and giving to all of us, because I think everyone in this room is a genius. And just figure out what you're a genius at, and then let the rest of the world know about it, and come back here and teach us. Also, as part of an honor code, usually they have a set of principles. Mine are a little bit different here than what the feds teach, but I think the first one is the most important part. That's different from most Fed honor codes, and that's that the world is one now. I don't really think there's any borders anymore. The barriers between countries have decreased dramatically, and we're all connected. And I think that's why things like the power grid hasn't been brought down yet, even though it's been vulnerable for 20 years, because everyone knows that that would hurt the entire world, not just the place where the power grid was put down. And also these connections, as we see, are going faster and faster over time. This is the internet, right? And this is connecting us all. And it's really, it's chaos that controls these connections, but focus can control the chaos, and guess who controls that? You. So you're in charge, and that's what you need to know, and you can set this and do whatever you want with the world and actually have the responsibility to do so. Also, we've got a key set of values that you'll see around the room a lot of times here too, that we think are really important. First one is only do good. Doing something bad to equal good in the long run does not equal good. So keep that in mind with everything. Always do your best. Everything that you're doing here, we want you to try hard and do your best, and really try to do this every day. Also constantly improve. That's what we're here for, right? Is to just get better and better and never give up at that. And also to innovate. That's what hackers do. That's what we all do best here. And so what's really great about kids is that you haven't learned everything that all of us adults have learned. So there's actually a tremendous opportunity here for you to find 0 days and vulnerabilities that we think have been fixed because they're so obvious. That's how Sci-Fi, when she was 9 years old, found a whole class of 0 days in every mobile device. Any hacker that had been around for 20 years was like, what? People are still making that mistake? And no experienced hacker would have looked for someone messing with the time code, because we all learned how to fix that a while ago. But it turns out that app developers are making that mistake again, and only a kid could have found that. So you can find even more, and we'd love to hear about it. Also, I think it's important to think about long-term here instead of short-term in everything we do. Says enough there. Be positive, especially here and with everything you're doing and when you're talking to people. It's really important to have a positive attitude and encourage everyone, and put a smile on, because this is supposed to be fun. I think it's really important for you to visualize what you want. This is how things happen. As Greta's here today, you might see her posters over here. She's the best free skier in the world, and also has the world record for the most air of any women in the world. And any pro athlete will tell you that they visualize over and over again their jumps and their runs and what they're going to do before they do it. And if they think about falling, they will fall. And if you think about landing, you will land. And I think that this technique with professional athletes can actually be applied to everything. As I said, have fun. That's what we're all here for, right? And also to inspire others. The DEF CON community is a giving community. If you go out to the main DEF CON and you go into the lockpicking session, because you liked what you learned here with lockpicking or hardware hacking, you sit down and you're going to be surrounded by people that want to teach you, which is really amazing. And they're teaching you for free, and they're giving you tools and vulnerabilities for free to make the world a better place. And that's something I hope that all of you will do too, and contribute to this community as well. And finally, go big. I think that's also part of the professional athlete way, and I think it's really important because everyone in this room has a chance to have a significant impact on the world, and accept nothing less from yourself. Now, we do have a few rules. Hopefully these rules aren't as lame as most rules that you hear, but I think it's really important to have rules, mainly because the internet is a small place, and the word gets around. So these rules are for yourself more than they are for anyone else. Rule number 1, only hack things you own, like the elevator hackers that were up here earlier, right? Don't hack the elevator unless it's your elevator. I think that's really important, because it's rude to mess with other people's stuff. Also, don't hack anything you rely on. You're learning how to lockpick here today, and I don't suggest that you go home and start lockpicking on your front door if you need to be able to get in that door, because you might break it. And so if it's something that you rely on, then that's not what you practice with. We've got a lot of locks here that aren't connected to doors, and that's a safe playground. That's where you should start. Of course, we should always respect the right of others. That's really obvious. The not so obvious one is the one here, which is know the law and the penalties. Now, usually most rules and honor codes say obey the law. We don't say that here. Let me tell you a couple examples why. Did you all know that it's illegal to have the American flag touch the ground? Yep, that's actually a law. Do you know what the consequence of breaking that law is? Nothing. It's an honor law. That's one example. Another example, and something that the EFS helped us with, is a few years ago we set up our own cellular operator here at DEF CON. We built our own AT&T, if you will, for all of our hackers to use. Slight on the verge of illegal. It was a little unknown. Could be, might be, might not. We were doing it on a Friday afternoon. Feds usually go home by then. The fine was like $1,000. So we were willing to take that fine because we wanted to do this. No one had ever built a cell network before. They actually keep those systems pretty secret, and we felt like it was worth the risk. So again, it's not black and white, but that's why Kurt's here to help you. And again, find a safe playground, right? And that's what we are. That's what Roots is here, is a safe playground. And we're here to help all of you. We think you're geniuses and amazing people, and can really do great things for the world. And with that, I'm going to pass it over to Kurt to talk a little bit more about law and ethics and the EFF.
Well, thank you. Let's give a round of applause for Nico for founding such a great conference. It is so wonderful to be here. I like coming here every year because I see the future right here. You are the people who are going to be hacking on things, making our world a better place tomorrow, and we're starting here today. So I'm Kurt Opsahl. I'm with the Electronic Frontier Foundation. We are a nonprofit civil liberties organization that is dedicated to defending your rights on the internet. We fight for privacy, we fight for freedom of expression, we fight for the right to innovate. And one of the things that I do, and one of the reasons why I'm here, is our Coders' Rights Project. We fight for coders' rights. We try and help security researchers be able to find vulnerabilities, disclose those vulnerabilities, try and get them fixed. Because we believe that hacking on things makes the world a better place. And by finding these vulnerabilities and bringing them into the public discussion, they're more likely to get fixed. Other people can learn from those mistakes, try and not make those mistakes in the future, and discourse goes on to a more secure environment. But some people get upset. They don't like it when their vulnerabilities are being exposed, and that's where the Coders' Rights Project comes in, is to help advise people about the laws that may affect what they can do. Whether you're sniffing a packet, using a lockpick, there are ways of doing that safely, like the lockpicks right here, you can do that. But if you break into somebody's house, that might be a little bit of trouble. And so we help advise people on how to conduct their research safely, and then after they've conducted their research, help them how to present it safely. So I'm very glad to be here, and we'll be here both at DEF CON. There'll be some booths. You guys make it over to the contest area. We have a lot of our staffers over at the Crypto Privacy Village, a new village this year that's helping teach people about cryptography and privacy, so you can learn how to do. I think some of these things are being taught here as well, but you can check it out there and learn about how to use PGP, how to communicate safely. We also have a contest there for hacking on routers, so that can be pretty fun. So I encourage you guys to, when you have a chance, go out there, see, compare and contrast, and see the sort of the wonderful things that are available here. Your questions?
Yeah, Kurt, maybe you could talk a little bit about a TRO and what that is and how you help us there.
So she's referencing a TRO, a temporary restraining order. So a couple years back, in 2008, we were advising some researchers out of MIT, some student researchers, who had discovered a flaw in the subway system out in Boston. They found a way that you could replicate the fare cards and get onto the subway for free. And this was security research they had done for a class. It wasn't intended so they could get free subway rides. In fact, as students, they could get a monthly pass for fairly cheap, and the amount of equipment that was necessary in order to replicate it was far more than the cost of the subway ride. They wanted to show that there was a problem with the system, that the MBTA, the Massachusetts Bay Transit Authority, had gotten a bad system, and it had vulnerabilities, and they wanted to get that vulnerability fixed. So they came to DEF CON to have a presentation to show people what that vulnerability was, and to explain how it could be made a little bit better. But the MBTA did not like that. They were very upset. They were afraid of the vulnerability being known because they wanted to rather have security by obscurity. They hoped if nobody knew about it, it wouldn't be a problem. But what they didn't realize, or they should have realized, is that these vulnerabilities exist whether people are talking about them or not. Somebody could exploit this vulnerability even if it wasn't talked about at the conference, and it's better to fix them. But instead, they hired some lawyers and they went into the court after hours to the duty judge, the judge that sort of has the short end of the stick and has to be up all night available in case something comes up, on the Friday of DEF CON. And they got a temporary restraining order to prevent the kids from talking, to prevent them from explaining their research. This turned out to be a relatively poor move if their goal was to hide the vulnerability, because the shutting down of the talk instead caused tremendous interest in what the talk was about. Other people started looking at the systems. There was front page news back in Boston. It was all over the media, and so their attempt to hide their vulnerability and hope that nobody knew that they had bad systems, it failed. So we represented these students. We went to get that TRO lifted. It took about 10 days, which is fairly short as court time goes. Unfortunately, this was past the time of the conference, but they were eventually able to get their research out there, and they were able to get to a good place with the MBTA, so they helped the MBTA figure out how to solve this problem, and they were able to move forward and get a more secure system.
Thank you, Kurt. And so a lot of times the people that are releasing 0 days and talks here at DEF CON, you hear vendors at some of these companies say, oh, the hacker's only doing this because he wants to be famous. And I have a little bit of a different point of view, and I think every one of these hackers that's releasing 0 days here over this weekend are our greatest heroes. Because number one, they have to put themselves at enough risk to get lawyers to educate you for free. Pretty interesting. And they're risking a lot. And also, these are vulnerabilities that could have been sold on the black market for a lot of money. And instead they're here teaching them to you for free. Try to make it over to the main DEF CON session too. They're looking forward to having you guys and want to teach the kids over there as well, so try to make it over. Dark Tangent, it seems like, is not making it over here though. So we have about 10 minutes to questions, or we could take a little break. Until then, anyone have any questions? All right. Yeah, not quite as, all right, got one over here. How can you help? Being here. You're doing it right now. And encouraging kids to look at code and understand what's going on, and encouraging them to love hacking, right? Because it's the most important skill set for the future of the world. We need to understand how to build these systems. And thanks.
That tomorrow at 11:30, my colleague Adi will be here talking about how people can help by being activists, by hacking the law, defending your digital rights. So a little bit more information of activist things that you can do. One of the things that was very concerning to us is the stiff penalties. I mean, Nico was saying, know the law, know the penalties. In some cases, perhaps like you have a flag dropping, penalties not so bad. But with hacking, the penalties can be that if you trespass on physical property, It's going to be, most likely a fine. But if you trespass on digital property, if you break into a computer system that is not your own, there can be rather stiff penalties. And we think those penalties are too high, that they take some things which are not worthy of years in jail and make them felonies and put some stiff penalties on them. So we can also push for reform to the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act. So you can contact your legislature in Congress and say that you think that we need reform and that we need to have penalties that fit the crime, and we need to have rules where you are not being accused and charged with hacking for behavior which is fairly ordinary. Things like violating a terms of service, which the Department of Justice asserts is, if you go to a site in violation of its terms of service, they say that that is a violation of the Computer Fraud and Abuse Act, and that, of course, is not what you would ordinarily think of as hacking.
And also relevant, I think, is our next talk. That's Thomas Cross is going to teach you all about lawful intercept machines. And this is something that he taught many of us in 2009. It was very stressful. The vendors that build these lawful intercept machines were not really happy with Thomas teaching us how to break into these lawful intercept machines, because that gave us the keys to the kingdom. But his research was key to me being able to say no to an FBI backdoor when I was asked for one at RSA last year, because I said to the agent, hey, first of all, you shouldn't build lawful intercept machines because I know how to break into them. And if you have a master hole, then people will get in. And master key, you have a master hole. But Thomas had to take a lot of risk to be able to release that research, and it was really key to impacting people like me and businesses today. And so I'm happy to have him here today teaching us about lawful intercept, which is essentially, this is what the federal government uses to be able to wiretap and listen in on your phone calls. We were able to listen in on those phone calls too. So with that, maybe we'll start Tom 5 minutes early if you guys don't have any more questions. Or we'll take a 5-minute break and then Tom will be up. One last question, anyone? All right, thanks guys.